called Surfwise, which I started making in 2005, and it was completed in 2007. It was about 2 years. And there was probably a year or more, maybe 2 years. Actually, yeah. You know what, it seems like it took 4 or 5 years. I think it kind of did it all told, like from the first idea to actually being in theaters. I want to talk to you a little bit about my process. And the theme of tonight's process, or the theme of tonight, is this idea about the relationship you have with your subject, which is a really dynamic area of discussion with documentary films, because it's like, you can't make a film without having some intense relationship with that person on the other side of the camera. It's one thing if you're just doing a short interview one day for a short film. It's another thing if you're doing something for a whole year. And it's quite another thing if you're doing something that's about an entire family. And it's quite another thing if there's 9 children in that family, and they're all amazing interviews. And film is really about the father and the mother. And you realize that you're making a film about this family's life. It's this huge responsibility, and you suddenly kind of get nervous. You feel that intensity as you're getting involved in the project, because you start out thinking like, oh, this is a great story. This is a really cool story. And then you kind of go, wow, this is like their life. I gotta really do this right. Like, you can't just like mess around with an entire family's life. And not only that, but they're extremely well known in the surfing community, which is a big community, as you Hawaiians know. And so it really was an amazing process, from the very first idea to me getting to know the family, starting filming, to kind of getting deeper into the film, working on it more and more, getting to know the family intimately, really, really well, because you just have to. And then finally having a finished movie, having to show the family the movie, which is probably the most nerve-wracking. I think it was the most nervous I've ever been in my entire life, and I'm not trying to exaggerate, the night I had to show the movie to the Paskowitz family. And that kind of makes you ask the question, like, well, are you doing it for them? Or are you doing it for a wider audience? And all these things are constant kind of battles in the mind of a documentary filmmaker. I want you to know that Moses Paskowitz is right here. And Moses is the 5th born child of Doc Paskowitz, who the film honors, and Juliet, of course, his wife. And it's really cool that you're here. When you start down the road of like, I'm making a film about you, it actually becomes such a mirror, this filmmaking process, that it's actually a form of therapy. It can be unhealthy therapy, or it can be actually very positive, or it can be just therapy without judgment. It just sort of, because no matter what, that person's going to start thinking about themselves and their lives, and that is really what, I mean, what does a therapist do? For those of you who haven't seen the therapist, the first thing they ask is like, they start asking questions that are just exactly like questions I want to ask all of my subjects. Like, why are you doing what you do? No, I don't want to hear what you do. I want to hear why you're doing it, because that's much more interesting for a film. I want to know why you even started surfing. Why is it cool? And sort of by that process of analyzing things, you really get into someone's head, and they start saying, well, I'm surfing for this reason, or I'm, whatever the subject is too. Like, I make art for this reason. And if you can really find that reason, or those reasons, the hidden motivations, suddenly art makes so much more sense. It's like when you go to a museum and you see a painting and you're like, that painting's okay. And then you find out that it was painted like some morning during war-torn, like you get some story, you read the little card, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what, now I kind of like that painting. That's a really cool painting. And if you're a filmmaker, it's the same process, because you want your audience to feel that way. So a better film is a deeper film, is a film that really plumbs those distances, and you get into the subject so that the audience starts going, oh my God, this guy can't get out of this rut. Films need to have conflict. They just have to have conflict. And I said this last night, but I'll just say it again, because it can always be repeated. But for 20,000 years, we have, as a species, been sitting around campfires, or little fires of screens and projector bulbs, and basically sharing stories. And the only stories we like are filled with conflict. It's the only ones that matter. You know, if like a bunch of people went hunting one day and they're all sitting around the fire, and one guy says, yeah, I chased a little rabbit and killed him, and that's my story. All right, whatever, everybody chased the rabbit and killed him. Everybody did that today. Okay, next, you know, and somebody says, I got lost in the woods and it wasn't that exciting because I found my way out right away. Well, that's no conflict. I mean, you know, you get the point. And then one guy's just like, oh my God, like I went up to the cliff and I jumped off the cliff and there was this deer and I chased the deer and I lost my bow and arrow and then I grabbed them, you know, and then the deer kicked me and I was like, you know, trying to hang on to the cliff and then this huge bear came and that's called a movie. And that's why we make movies, is to tell stories and make people excited. So the reason I'm going into all of this is that when you're suddenly in the situation where you have a subject, and you have a family, like I'm like, here's this really cool family. They're super well-known, they're honored. Doc Paskowitz is legendary, he just is. And then you'll hear that in the opening minutes of the film. You'll just get that right after that. The guy's known throughout the world for his amazing theories of health, of life, of surfing, sexuality, everything. He's just one of these guys who has really taught a lot of people how to live, or given them ideas, or pushed them into living the lives that they would like to live. So you'd think that I'm on the verge of what we would call a tribute film. You'd think I'm on the verge of a film that would just honor Doc. But the danger there, so my biggest fear was like, God, you know, there's this amazing family. I think they're amazing. I could just tell right off the bat, this is like a very unusual, very dynamic family. And Doc is heralded around the world in the surfing community. How do you make a film about him that isn't like the boring deer hunter story? Like, you know, chapter 1, Doc's a great doctor. Chapter 2, he's a great surfer. Chapter 3, he's great at this, he's great at that, he's great at this. It's just good, happy, great all the way through the movie. And it just doesn't work that way. Because it's like, that's not a movie. That's a tribute film. And tribute films are totally cool. So let's call it a tribute film. Let's make it 30 minutes. Let's praise Doc and just totally do it. So then the question becomes, well, how can we tell a story that is both a tribute film? Because first of all, if I didn't like Doc Paskowitz, by some reason was like, I'm gonna get this guy. He's a jerk. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna spend 5 years of my life. You know, you can already see how ridiculous that is. You just don't make movies on stuff you don't kind of love. So you gotta kind of love the subject, and you're not gonna even stick with it. You're just gonna be out of there on the third all-nighter. You know, you're just, yeah, maybe the second or the first. You're like, I'm out. I'm not gonna do this movie anymore. So but there's this dilemma, be like, but Shakespeare has conflict, we're telling stories, and you have to think about the buyer. Like, you have to think about getting it distributed, because why make a movie if no one's gonna go? Why make a movie if no one's gonna buy the movie and put it in theaters? And, you know, movies are big, arrogant, bombastic things. It's not like a little painting that you can just put up in your wall and like maybe your friends like it. That's totally cool. And nothing against paintings. I love art. I didn't mean it that way. But movies are just by definition, they're like, you're making a billboard. You're not making a little painting. No matter how sensitive and quiet and cool the film is, you're making a billboard. You're asking people to go into a theater at 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock on Friday, and then again on Saturday, and then the following weekend and the following weekend. And so to do that, any distributor, the first thing they're gonna say is like, well, where's the story? What's the conflict? What's the crazy, scary part? What's the sexy, rock and roll, dangerous part, right? And so the more you get into filmmaking, the more you just start applying that litmus test to everything. Every story that comes your way, you're like, God, I like this, I really like this guy. Of course I'm not gonna make a tribute film, but I wanna honor him, and I also wanna get into the story and kind of tell the truth. I wanna show difficulties. I wanna show struggles. I wanna show a battle. And so this movie, so now to talk about Surfwise, and then I'll wrap up my comments and then we'll just watch it. This movie, first of all, it made this whole idea of needing conflict really easy because the subjects themselves are, and this is a tribute to the family, what I'm about to say, they are among the most honest and forthcoming and bright interviews I've ever done in my life. It really is true. I mean, to a name, all 9 of the siblings, including Moses, they're just honest. And I don't know if that's because they had done a lot of media growing up, or because of the way they were brought up, which was very unusual, made them just less inhibited. But there's kind of a joy and an honesty and a pain that's just right there. They'll just tell you anything. They'll just say like, man, this was really, so I can say like, what was great about growing up? Get all the list of all the amazing things, which helps me build the mountain. And then, what was bad about growing up? And they're so honest. They would just tell me, this was bad, this was bad, this was bad, this sucked. And so you'll see in the film, like I don't know what I'm pointing at. I built, the film is going to be up there. You'll see in the film, just sort of like trying to create these mountains in the valley, just like the deer chasing story. Like, there's this great thing, there's this dream, there's this awesome golden age of an amazing family, and there's always problems, because life is filled with problems. And so we struggle a lot on this film to figure out the balance between tribute film for an amazing man and honest film about how difficult it is to actually pursue your dreams. So the film is ultimately about, and I'm not spoiling anything, there's no spoilers here. The film is ultimately about how difficult it is to pursue your dreams. Which is a lot more exciting than a movie about how easy it is. Which a lot of movies are. And that's a movie, so anyway, so I guess you could just think about those themes as you're watching it, and you'll see in the editing that we did, just definite decisions. Like, we're going to bring the audience up, now we're going to let them down. Now we're going to bring them up, now we're going to let them down. And every one of those peaks and valleys is a decision for timing, for where to put the scene. Every time there's a really big valley, you have to come off a big mountain. And it's fun, it's like a roller coaster. Which gets you back to the whole entertainment thing. Why do people go to amusement parks? Because they're roller coasters. Why is a roller coaster? Because it goes really up and it goes really down really fast. And it's the same reason we buy tickets to see movies. It's the exact same impulse, but we don't want to go and just flatline. So this movie was so filled with so many dynamics. It's really one of the my favorite works that I've ever had the pleasure of making. It was not easy. Nor were its subjects, like Dr. Paskowitz, not the easiest guy in the world. So one last quick story that I promise will start. Dorian Paskowitz, he was so conflicted about making the movie. And Moses, you can speak to this after the film as well. But because on the one hand, he felt guilty. He was just like, this is so grandiose, this is arrogant, like what a, I think he would say, like what a bastard I am to make a film about myself. Like he just was completely torn. It was almost a religious, moral opposition to being in a film because it just felt wrong to him. It was like getting a big statue made of yourself and putting it in this town, the center of town. It just felt wrong. And on the other hand, he was really frustrated because he has all these ideas and written all these books, and he's like so filled with wanting the world to understand his ideas of health, of living a healthy lifestyle, that I think it took a long, long time weaving and working with him and battling with him and loving him, and we got along really, really well. Don't get me wrong. But it was tough because he was constantly like pushing and then pulling and giving and then pulling back, and it was just a really tough relationship with that particular subject. And it's something I love the guy. He's really amazing. But he also really gave us the goods, and the family really gave us kind of the full spectrum, which I think makes it a more intense and hopefully better movie. Last thing I'll say, because I do want to say this instead of waiting to the end, is that Dorian Paskowitz passed away in December, and so it's going to be really interesting watching the film. It's the first time I've really seen the movie since that event. There's been beautiful memorials around the world. There was a memorial in Tel Aviv for him, like just tons of huge catalog. You wouldn't believe how many people in Tel Aviv did a big catalog per doc. You'll see why in the film. There was a beautiful event here in Waikiki that Moses orchestrated for his father about 2 months ago. And a very large event in San Clemente. So this whole year, there's been just a lot of memorials, really great events in honor of Doc. So I just wanted to end on that note and just say that I'm glad the film still plays. A lot of people have seen the film and they understand Doc better. And a lot of them kind of, because there's so much conflict in the film, some people don't get it. They don't buy into what he's saying, but that's just the way. Our whole goal was just leave it all out there. Let's just say it all in the movie and let the audience decide. Like, you guys decide what you think about the family and Doc's beliefs. Unless there's anything else to say or any media questions, I think I'll just let the film run. And thank you so much for coming. It's an honor to be here. I hope you like the movie. And Moses, I'm so glad you could join us. A slight chance he's having a bad day, speaking of conflict, just trying to do like a million errands. I don't know if he's going to make it, but there's a chance that Dave Homcy, who's a surfer and was the cinematographer on this film, may make it for Q&A as well. So we might have Moses, myself, and Dave for that. Okay, thanks again.
When I was 10 years old, Doc rolled into my father's school and pulled a surfboard out of the back of his car after my dad let him show his film at his school and said, take this home and have your son start surfing. And that's how I started surfing. And then I met Doug and made the film with him, and pretty amazing to meet Doc after all those years. I had kind of searched him out after I moved to Hawaii. I heard the name Paskowitz and I'm like, that's the reason I surf, is because of Doc. And it was a pretty cool, way to end this, like, come full circle from where it began and meeting Doc and his family and everything. It was pretty incredible. And I thank Doug for that, big time.
Well, it's a beautiful film. I haven't really watched it in a few years, so it flows like surfing. I mean, the way he shot it, and this editor, Lasse Jarvi, who's just one of my favorite editors in the world, is just very open, really open in terms of what he's doing. I want to introduce Moses, but he's out in the parking lot. I hope he'll come in. Okay, so what we can do, but I'd be happy to take questions, and I'm sure Dave would as well, about the film and the process. And if you want to relate it in terms of the subjects, we could talk about how, like, filming some of those scenes or any questions you might have about the movie. Yes?
Would the reunion have happened without the film?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Would the reunion have happened without the film?
Okay, that's actually, the question is, would the reunion have happened without the film? There's two answers to that. Yes, the reunion would have happened without the film. And no, that reunion wouldn't have happened without the film. Because as I was saying before the movie, like, it's sort of like you engage with this family for like a couple years. I've done all these interviews with them about how David is estranged, how there's this problem. It's sort of like, well, we're making a movie. Like, it's not like I ever said to them, well, gee, we need an ending. It's the family. The family, there's something psychological that happens when a film's being made about you that kicks you in the head and says, well, what are we? This dude's making a movie about us. What are we? And I really believe, if Moses was standing here, I could just ask him. Let's ask him when he walks in. But so the idea of, like, the reunion was something that any producer would talk about. Like, well, are they ever going to get together? Well, I don't know. How long are we going to be filming for? Well, maybe 6 more months. So it was sort of like something that certainly when we heard the idea, I don't think we came up with the idea, but when we heard the brothers or somebody talking about, like, well, we might have a reunion, or maybe we'll do that. It was like, yes, let's absolutely film that. And the only thing that felt a little bit reality TV-like, and maybe in a bad way, but I think it was very sincere, was just that we knew that Izzy was coming and the rest of the family didn't. And so I knew when his flight was landing, and I went out with one camera. I think, you were with the reunion, or you went to with Izzy or something? So that was kind of a trip, and some people have accused us of, like, it was like reality TV. But the truth is, Moses, you gonna join us?
Oh yeah, but first, ladies and gentlemen, Steve, who owns the bakery next door. So he says, oh hey, what are you guys doing? And so the typical Paskowitz way is somehow we have this connection to everybody in a very strange way. So Steve has some, if anyone would care for a brand new, freshly baked donut. And I will only share one challah with you folks because this is like gold. So if anyone, there's beautiful fresh donuts. Don't be shy, come take a look. Kiki girl. First of all, I want to thank Doug and I want to thank Agora. What's the pronunciation? Agora. For having the show. I've seen it a million times. I've lived it in my life, and my family has really been part of surfing all our lives. I think that it's something that is just connect us forever. Like I said in the film, Dorian all his life has been Jewish. Excuse me, a surfer, more than anything. But being Jewish is the second component of his life. So it's something that really changed his life in the 50s. And he died here because he went back to California and he missed my mom, basically. So he was in love so much with my mom, and I have some of my friends from Locations Hawaii back over there. And he just missed being around them. And you know, the one thing was that he loved her so much. And you can see that the devotion that my father had for my mother. And it really was her who kind of made him a great man. Because you always hear about Doc, and Doc did this, and Doc did that, but you never hear about Juliet. What happened, you know, how did this guy live to almost 94 years of age? You know, what did he eat every day? Because Doc was very, very lazy in a way that he always wanted someone else to cook for him. And he always wanted my mother to always cook for him. And one day we met Doug Gregg, who was completely opposite, you can tell, of me. Totally introverted, very smart, intellectual person who kind of closes himself in. And I'm all the way out there every single day. And Dave Homcy, one of the operators on 5-0, and he's been a surfer and a close friend of ours forever. And so when you put all that together with Loxie, who was the editor, they really came up with a product that changed a lot of people's lives. And that's the greatest thing I get back from the movie, is that we have an opportunity to share my dad's philosophy, to share the true love he had for surfing, for people, for the Jewish community, especially when it came to the Holocaust survivors, but just for human beings in general. Because you know, he says the F word a lot, but he uses a general foundation of how we have sex, so to speak, to make the world move further. Because with him, that's the way truly that God wanted us to be. The only way to do that, whether it's animal, man, is woman, you have to have that situation. And he really truly believed in how much it was like a royal thing. And my mom was always there for me. Did I say anything wrong?
No, that's a good question. We had a really good question while you were standing just outside. Somebody asked, you know, earlier I was talking about the effect that making a film has on the subjects. And a simple question that would get to that is, do you think the reunion would have happened if we weren't ever making the movie? Or did the film kind of in its own psychological way cause the reunion?
Well, and a lot of people think it was staged. So you saw the family. So you say to the Paskowitz members, hey, I'll pay for you and your wife to go to Hawaii. I'll give you a few extra bucks. Do you want to go? And just by chance, I don't know how it was by Thanksgiving, that it all came together. And it wasn't one of the things we staged. We invited a lot of our friends from the islands that came out and joined us. Eddie and McCool Rothman and Tanae Forsyth and some other friends here. They were just part of it. And so, I mean, defeat of Paskowitz is like the greatest thing you could ever do. So if you breakfast on
food at the reunion.
Yeah, then it's going to happen, then 100%. Because we were always, and that's why I give back now, because You know, Dorian always said, always give, never, you know, always try to give, but he was always a taker in so many different ways. And when we put together the Thanksgiving, it really just all fell into place. Izzy came out of the blue. We didn't think that was going to happen. Just like any other big family, you know, some of us get along very well, some of us don't. But it's one of those things that it's what family's all about. You know, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family because you're stuck with the people that are your brothers or your sister. And we do our best to try to make it work. The film has really been a gift from Doug, because without Doug and the way that he could pull all that information, so when you talk about how do you respond to your subjects, I think if Doug was some other, like a McGee kind of guy, very outspoken, very overt, I don't think it would got the same kind of dialogue that he came from the family. But since he was so really quiet and reserved and just waited for all of us to vomit everything out, it just all came out. And David said one thing that was really resonated to me is that my father raised 9 separate children, because every single person was successful in some way, but not as a whole. And Dorian, all he cared about is keeping everyone as a whole. The Paskowitz power, the family, that what mattered most to him. So it really became the Paskowitz experiment, because with his first 2 wives and his second wife almost being the governor of the state and really having an opportunity to change the shape of Hawaii, he found out his wife was sleeping with the Beach Boy. So he went the totally opposite, moved into a car and traveled the world for the rest of his life. And he felt that whatever would happen by having more children and more children was the right thing to do. And you know, I miss him every day, but he's with us in his energy and his spirit. Dave was there with us when we did our Pavlov. He is going to get the Lifetime Achievement Award from SEMA in August, which is the Surfing Industry Manufacturer Award. Kelly Slater will deliver it to him. Jim Kempton will do the eulogy. And I really thank my dad for having such a love for Hawaii and the people and the ocean. And the best thing I got out of it, besides my handicap placard, that's the only thing I got from my inheritance, is that he made me from Hawaii again. All my life I've been from San Clemente. And now Honolulu is my home. I found the best job I ever had in my life. I work with amazing, incredible people. I get to surf every day if I want to. My front yard is Waikiki Beach, so if every time you want to see me on a Saturday, please come say aloha. My Hanai family is here tonight, and that's where we live. We live on the beach, and we share that experience of being in the water, whether it's kaimainas or visitors from around the world. Thank you, Doug.
You know what else? Moses, one of the greatest surf instructors, the entire family, amazing surf instructors. I got out, I surfed for the very first time in my entire life today. So did my wife. Today. This is a really big gap. I've tried like 150 times. I'm terrible, but I surf thanks to you today. I just wanted to follow up on one thing, and this is a little more about the relationship to your subject, and it applies to Dave as well, is you have to kind of, good interviews come when you're kind of like in the mode of how your subject is. And if we had been like really intense, kind of like, okay, I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need it now, you know, or if Dave was the kind of DP that's like, no, I'm putting the light here, and we're gonna do this, you know, because there's a lot of filmmakers can be very aggressive, and sometimes that's great, you need that. But it worked really well. Like I do have a more mellow approach. It's a ruse. It's intentional. It's completely like, hey, no, whatever. Like we can do this now. We can do this later. Like I just want to talk. And it's a way of. It's sort of like I was saying earlier. It's kind of like I'm a therapist when I talk. Like I want people to be just completely comfortable, or the interviews don't work. And it's the same. That's why I love working with you, Dave. It's like Dave just kind of like he can just like glide into a room and just film stuff, just incredibly open to what he's seeing and not rigid, not like, well, the shot's over here, this is the wide shot, and here's the close-up. And like the one scene that just, I hadn't seen this for a while, it just blows my mind, is when David sings that song, and it's so intense, and totally unplanned. That was the first day of production. The first day. And I'll never forget walking out of the house after that session. I'm just like drained. I'm like, oh my God. And our line producer, Steph, said, she goes like, so how was the interview? And I was like, I think we have a film. Like I really, because you know the whole conflict thing, I was like, well, we're starting with the most intense conflict. Like, oh my God. Something just happened. You had a question?
Yeah, that was an intense conflict. And, you know, I felt bad when he was saying that he would feel a certain way, you know, when your dad died. Like, I'm not going to feel. How does he feel now?
I think David being the oldest, most of us left the camper when we were 13 or 14 years old, but David left when he was 28. And I think he had the pressure of trying to figure out what my dad's, his idea of what the future was of the Paskowitz family. Because by that time, Jonathan Abram, Israel Moses was already gone. So all you had left was David, Adam, Salvador, Nava, and baby Josh. And I think he's still, I think there's something that he probably regrets, but not making a, you know, kind of a clean slate with my dad. But it's one of those things where your father grows up in front of you and becomes larger than life. And I don't know if Gandhi had children, or I don't know if you know, Dr. Martin Luther King had kids, but when you see your dad grow up and he becomes more so than you're just your father anymore, that it's hard for you to have an idea of you know, do I hate him still? Do I love him? Because he's gone beyond that. And you know, Doc did something like Duke did. He brought surfing to a country that never existed before. And Dorian, like I said, he loves surfing more than anything. And David, we all have our own little demons when it comes to how we perceive how Doc should have been or could have been. But you know, this is what we ended up with. And none of us are drug dealers or drug addicts. None of us have gone to jail. We're fairly articulate, and we all seem to be able to help the people around us. And to me, I think that's the greatest thing that each one of the Paskowitz members does. Wherever we go in the world, whether it's giving donuts out or whatever it might be, that we're always doing that wherever we're at, whether it's a shirt off our back or a little teeny pin in your car. It's something that we always do. My dad was the greatest giver in the world. You know, he gave more to the other people than he did to his family, because he knew his family could control, he could take care of them. The other people out there, he really tried to make a difference to the people with the way they thought about him and what it meant for surfing and what it meant for the world.
Any other questions or questions for Dave about shooting the film?
I just have a question about how the transition about the failure of the second marriage made him break from society, and as a result he tried to take the kids and shelter them from the horror and the insincerity of what power and what that whole part of life meant. And maybe he was adamant about making you not be part of that. And in that sense, I wonder if that was what part of his motivation was. It seemed to me it was kind of, in a way, cruel, but in another way it was a gift. But I couldn't help but wonder how it all happened to be that way. That's the only thing I can kind of figure out. Well, surfing, yes, and he always surfed, but something made him just stand and walk away from that whole.
Here's his second wife that he loved. Dorian, my parents, their parents were really the most romantic people I ever heard stories about. My mother's father would write a little note, sonnet every day and leave it on her pillow. My grandfather, Salvador, wrote, "You should never hit a woman with anything harder than the petals of roses." And Dorian was so in love with love. So the second marriage, when he found out he was having breakfast every morning with Walter Dillingham, Henry J. Kaiser said, "I want you to start this little thing called Kaiser Permanente." He lived at the Pacific Club. He was asked to run for the governorship of Hawaii. So he had all the accolades of modern society. But through that, his wife was sleeping with another man. And so what he did, being an extremist, he went completely 180 degrees. So he gave everything up, moved into a car, and you see him loading the stuff in the box. Literally, that all he had was that box. It's not folded and not put away nicely. It's just shoved in there. And he went to Israel to try to resurrect his life. It didn't happen. And then in '58, he met my mom. In '59, they had the first baby. And 53 years later, you know, they were still married.
Any other questions? Yes?
How do you think being son number 5 influenced your development or your position in the family?
What are the what?
How was being son number 5, how do you think that shaped you as, you know, a person?
Well, first of all, they tease me more. I'm faster than anyone. By the way, as you can tell, I'm weight challenged. So all of my other brothers were like Adonis. So I was teased more than anybody. So being the middle child, 4 above and 4 below, I got it the most. So I didn't start speaking English till I was about 3 or 4 years old. My brother Adam, who was younger than me, who walked at 7 months of age, would be my interpreter. So being the middle child, I took all the crap. But also being the largest, it didn't affect me in the way that it affected my other siblings. Because something, you know, like I almost died, 9.5 years old. And these things made me stronger to take all the abuse and whatever it was. Just like any sibling does to their children, you know, to their brother or sister. They attack them, they're relentless and awful. I mean, I had, my brother Jonathan threw a pair of scissors and stuck in my leg on our way to Montreal. My brother Abram scratched my face that I had a scar for almost a year on my face. Because we're like wild animals in a little teeny camper. So there's no way for me to say that it affected me in a way that was changed my life. Because, you know, I'm still a giant. I surf almost every other day. And I love what I do. I mean, I have no regrets of the way my dad raised us. Yes, we probably were an experiment because he was a scientist and really brilliant. But he always made everyone feel better than himself because he didn't want himself to be like the center of attention. He wanted you to be the center of attention. He wanted you to feel how great you were. I mean, that's the way he did. He made everyone feel grand. And Jim Kempton said that he made everyone feel like, wow, it's really great that I met you today. And I love him for that. You know, like I said, he changed people's lives, whether it was for the better or for the worse, but here's a person that actually did that. And as the number 5 child, you know, you just took it. It is what it was. It didn't turn me into hating my family or my brothers. It just made me believe more in myself, that if I believe in myself, I can do anything.
Doug, I have one last question for you, and that is the arc of the film. We talked about yesterday about how many times the film gets cut and recut, and the number of years that you spent making the film, and how many times you tried to figure out the arc and get it to conclude. How much time did you actually spend recutting the film to get it to where it was?
It definitely was like at least a year of editing. I mean, on and off, sometimes you take breaks, but it was a year. And figuring out the narrative took a long time, and now when I watch it, it all makes perfect sense. Act 1 is the dream, the golden era. Everything's perfect. That's how so many stories start out. Act 2 is, it's actually hard to live dreams. It's hard to do this. Act 3 is like, oh shit. It's not just hard, it's actually impossible. And I don't know if it's in Act 4, but then in the end, it's like, but life is worth living. You know, it's like the message, but it's all worth it, because everything he said was true. And 4 acts, yeah, whatever. That's why it took a year. Because we thought it was just 3, and we were really depressed. Then we needed the reunion, so also we had a 4th act, and like, oh, thank God, we can actually get back to Doc's message of love, which is there, very, very strong. So, okay, so maybe on that note, should we call it a night?
Ladies and gentlemen,